The massive screens aboard the Galactic Council's flagship showed dozens of small dots approaching their border. Admiral Tull, a towering blue-skinned alien with 4 eyes, leaned forward in his command chair, his expression puzzled. These ships were unlike anything recorded in Council databases. "Report," he ordered, his deep voice echoing across the bridge. "Sir, we're detecting 27 vessels approaching from the unexplored sector," replied his sensor officer. "But there must be some mistake. They're barely larger than our support shuttles." The Admiral's secondary eyes blinked in confusion. The Council's smallest warships were at least 2 kilometers long. These newcomers measured only a few hundred meters each. He watched as the unknown fleet maintained perfect formation, moving with remarkable precision. A communication request flashed across the main screen. After running standard security protocols, Admiral Tull approved the incoming transmission. The screen filled with the image of a human face, a species the Council had only heard rumors about. "This is Captain James Walker of the Earth Defense Force," the human said clearly. "We come in peace and seek diplomatic relations with the Galactic Council." The bridge crew couldn't contain themselves. Several officers burst into laughter, while others whispered among themselves. Even Admiral Tull's stern expression cracked into an amused smile. These creatures thought they could approach the mighty Galactic Council in what appeared to be oversized shuttlecraft. "I am Admiral Tull of the Galactic Council," he replied, trying to keep his voice steady. "Your fleet is quite interesting, Captain Walker. Though I must ask, are these truly your warships? Or perhaps you've brought a civilian delegation?" Walker's expression remained professional, though his eyes hardened slightly. "These are indeed warships, Admiral. The Earth Defense Force's 7th Fleet, to be precise. Each vessel is fully combat-capable and equipped with our latest technology." This triggered another round of poorly concealed laughter from the bridge crew. One of the Council's junior officers, unable to contain himself, spoke up. "Admiral, their entire fleet would fit in our main cargo bay." Walker remained silent, watching the aliens mock his ships. His hands, not visible on the screen, tightened slightly on his armrests, but his face showed no anger. Admiral Tull raised a hand, silencing his crew. "Captain Walker, while we appreciate your enthusiasm, you must understand our position. The Galactic Council represents over 50 spacefaring species. Our smallest patrol vessel is larger than your entire fleet combined. Perhaps it would be better if you returned when your civilization has advanced further." "Admiral," Walker replied calmly, "I respectfully suggest you not judge our capabilities by size alone. We request a formal meeting with the Council representatives. Size isn't everything, as the saying goes on Earth." This triggered the loudest laugh yet. Admiral Tull's 4 eyes crinkled with amusement. "Very well, Captain. We will grant you an audience, if only to educate you on galactic standards. It should prove enlightening for your species." The transmission ended, and Admiral Tull turned to his second-in-command. "Record everything about their ships. The Council will want to see this. It's not often we meet a species so charmingly primitive." Meanwhile, aboard the EDF Phoenix, Captain Walker's flagship, the bridge was silent. His crew had maintained perfect discipline throughout the exchange, though several wore slight smiles. They reacted exactly as expected, "Sir," his tactical officer noted. "Complete dismissal of our capabilities." Walker nodded, finally allowing himself a small smile. "Humanity's greatest advantage has always been that others underestimate us. Did they scan beneath our hull plating?" "No, sir. Their scans were superficial. They didn't even try to penetrate our outer shields. They're so convinced we're primitive, they didn't bother with detailed scans." "Good," Walker replied, studying the massive Council ships on his display. Each one was beautiful in its way. Enormous, ornate, and completely impractical. "Send word to Earth Command. Tell them Phase 1 is complete." The Council took the bait exactly as predicted. As the message was sent, Walker watched his fleet's formation in the tactical display. 27 ships, each a masterpiece of human engineering and efficiency. Inside their relatively small hulls lay technology that would make the Council's eyes widen, if they ever bothered to look closely enough. But that would come later. For now, let them laugh. Let them mock the tiny human ships. They would learn soon enough. The Council's main diplomatic chamber was massive, with a ceiling that stretched nearly 100 meters high. Captain Walker stood calmly before the gathered representatives of 50 alien species, feeling rather like an ant in a cathedral. Above him, the various council members peered down from their elevated seats, many using visual enhancement devices to even see him properly. "So," spoke Head Councilor Wren, a tall creature with silvery skin, "you claim these miniature vessels represent humanity's best technology." The councilor's voice carried both amusement and condescension. Walker activated a small device on his wrist. A hologram appeared, showing one of the human ships in perfect detail. "This is the Phoenix, my flagship. While small by your standards, I assure you its size is by design, not limitation." "By design?" Another councilor scoffed. What possible advantage could such a tiny vessel have? Walker's hologram zoomed in on various parts of the ship. "On Earth, we have a saying, necessity is the mother of invention. Unlike many species, we didn't have access to vast quantities of rare materials when we began space exploration. We had to be efficient." The hologram shifted, showing the internal layout of the Phoenix. Several councilors leaned forward, their interest finally piqued by the incredible density of systems packed into the ship. "Our vessels carry no crew quarters, no recreational facilities, no diplomatic suites," Walker explained. "Every cubic meter serves a combat or tactical purpose." "No crew quarters," Head Councilor Wren interrupted. "How do your crews survive?" "They don't need to," Walker replied simply. "Because there are no crews." A murmur ran through the chamber. One of the military advisors, a reptilian being, spoke up. "You send unmanned ships into space. That's primitive automation at best." Walker allowed himself a small smile. "Not unmanned, differently manned." The hologram changed again, showing complex neural networks running throughout the ship. Each vessel houses a quantum AI core integrated with thousands of subprocessors. Our ships don't need crews because they are the crew. The chamber erupted in shocked whispers. AI technology was known in the galaxy, but mostly as simple automation tools. What Walker described was something else entirely. "Impossible," stated a tech specialist counselor. "The power requirements alone are minimal," Walker interrupted politely. "Through miniaturization and efficiency improvements, each ship's AI core uses less power than your standard life support systems." He paused. "Which we don't need." The military advisor leaned forward. "And what of combat? Surely such small vessels would be incredibly difficult to hit." Walker completed the thought. "Our ships have the same firepower as vessels 5 times their size, but packed into a much smaller target. Plus, with AI control, they can perform maneuvers that would kill organic crews." The hologram demonstrated a battle simulation. The tiny human ship pulled turns and accelerations that made several counselors look ill just watching. No organic being could survive such stresses. But the psychological impact," protested another counselor. "Battles require intuition, creativity. Our AI cores are based on mapped human consciousness," Walker explained. "They think creatively, adapt rapidly, and learn from every engagement. But they don't feel fear, don't need rest, and can process information thousands of times faster than organic brains." The chamber had grown very quiet. The earlier amusement had faded from many faces, replaced by thoughtful concern. Head Councilor Wren spoke again, his tone more measured now. "You speak of remarkable achievements, Captain Walker. Yet we see no evidence of these capabilities in our scans." Walker nodded. "Our outer hull is designed to appear simple to standard scans." Another efficiency. Why waste power on defensive systems if you can convince potential enemies you're not worth attacking? A deception, then. The head counselor frowned. A practical approach, Walker corrected. We find it useful when others underestimate us. It has served humanity well throughout our history. As if to emphasize his point, alarms suddenly blared throughout the chamber. An emergency message flashed on the main screens. Dominion Fleet DETHTE APPROHE Kao Seal Space. Walker looked at the warning, then back to the council. It seems you may get a demonstration sooner than planned. The tiny human fleet, dismissed so readily by the council, was about to show its true capabilities. And Walker knew that after today, no one would laugh at human ships again. The council's emergency command center erupted into chaos as the massive display showed hundreds of Dominion warships emerging from hyperspace. These aggressive raiders had plagued the galaxy's outer regions for years, but never dared attack so close to council space before. All council vessels, battle positions. Admiral Tull's voice boomed across the command channel. Huge council warships began moving into defensive formations, their kilometer-long hulls gleaming under distant stars. Captain Walker stood quietly in the corner of the command center, watching. His small fleet remained in a tight formation off to the side, seemingly forgotten in the crisis. He tapped his wrist computer, silently communicating with his ship's AI cores. The Dominion fleet approached with surprising speed. Their ships were smaller than the council vessels, but still far larger than the human craft. Unlike the ornate council ships, Dominion vessels were ugly, brutal things bristling with weapons. "They're not responding to hails," reported a council communications officer. Multiple hostile locks detected. The first shots fired across space. Massive energy beams from council ships lit up the darkness, but the Dominion vessels proved surprisingly agile for their size. They weaved through the barrage, closing distance rapidly. "Our targeting systems can't keep up," shouted a weapons officer. "They're using some kind of new drive technology." Walker's eyes narrowed as he studied the enemy's movement patterns. "Those are inertial nullifiers," he said quietly. "They've found a way to reduce their ship's mass during maneuvers." Admiral Tull, overhearing this, turned to Walker. "How can you be sure?" "Because we developed similar technology 50 years ago," Walker replied, then abandoned it as inefficient. The battle continued to go poorly for the Council. Their huge ships, while powerful, were too slow to track the rapidly moving Dominion vessels. Several Council ships had already taken heavy damage. Walker's wrist computer blinked with an incoming transmission from Earth Command. He read it quickly, then approached Admiral Tull. "We have authorization to engage," Walker stated simply, "if you wish our assistance." Tull looked at the tiny human fleet, then back at the battle where his mighty ships were struggling. His pride warred visibly with his duty to protect Council space. Another Council ship reported critical damage, making his decision easier. "Very well," Tull said reluctantly. "What can your small fleet contribute?" Walker didn't answer directly. Instead, he sent a simple command through his neural link. "Execute Combat Protocol Alpha." The change in the human ships was instant and dramatic. Their seemingly simple hulls shifted, panels sliding aside to reveal weapon ports. Each vessel split into 3 separate sections, connected by shimmering energy fields, tripling their effective combat surface, while maintaining tiny target profiles. "By the stars," whispered a Council technician, "they're transforming." The human ships accelerated at impossible speeds, their AI cores coordinating movements too precise for any organic crew to attempt. They wove through the battle with astounding agility, making both Council and Dominion ships look sluggish in comparison. "Admiral," Walker said calmly, "I suggest you have your ships fall back and establish a defensive perimeter. We'll handle the close-range engagement." Before Tull could protest, the human fleet engaged. Each small vessel launched swarms of even smaller drones, filling space with hundreds of autonomous weapons platforms. The Dominion ships, caught off guard by these new tactics, began taking hits from multiple directions. Impossible, Tull muttered, watching the battle unfold. Their coordination, their speed. This is what AI warfare looks like, Admiral, Walker explained. Every drone, every weapon, every system working in perfect harmony. No delays for crew communication, no need to protect fragile organic bodies. The Dominion fleet, faced with an enemy they couldn't effectively target, began to fall into disarray. Their inertial nullifiers, so effective against the Council's predictable targeting systems, proved useless against the human ship's quantum speed calculations and adaptive targeting. "They're retreating," announced a Council officer as the Dominion ships began to break formation. But Walker's expression remained serious. "No," he corrected. "They're regrouping. This was just a test of our capabilities." He turned to Admiral Tull. "The real battle hasn't even started yet." The Admiral looked at Walker with new respect, then back at the battle display where the tiny human ships continued their precise dance through space. He had a feeling the galaxy's understanding of warfare was about to change forever. The Council's command center was eerily quiet. 3 hours had passed since the Dominion fleet's retreat, but everyone knew they would return. Captain Walker stood at a tactical display, studying reports from long-range sensors. "Captain," a Council officer called out suddenly, "we're detecting multiple Dominion signatures near the Greenhaven colony." Admiral Tull rushed to the display. Greenhaven was a peaceful farming colony with minimal defenses, home to over 2 million civilians. "How long until our nearest ships can respond?" Tull demanded. 4 hours at maximum speed," came the grim reply. "The colony's defenses won't last 10 minutes. Walker stepped forward. "The Phoenix fleet can be there in 20 minutes. Tull turned to him sharply. "Impossible. Greenhaven is 16 light-years from here." "For your ships, yes," Walker replied calmly. "Permission to demonstrate another human innovation." Tull hesitated only briefly. "Granted. Save those people." Walker nodded and sent a command through his neural link. On the display, the human ships suddenly shifted formation. Energy began building between them, forming a complex geometric pattern. "What are they doing?" someone whispered. "Creating a mass reduction field," Walker explained. "Or as we call it, a space fold." He paused. "You might want to watch closely. This is something your sensors have never recorded before." The energy pattern suddenly collapsed inward, and the human ships vanished in a flash of blue light. The Council officers stared in stunned silence at their now empty sensor displays. 18 minutes later, alerts flashed as the battle for Greenhaven began. The Dominion raiders had expected an easy target. Instead, they found themselves facing the full fury of Earth's automated combat systems. Human ships emerged from their space, fold directly into attack positions, their synchronized AI cores already processing optimal battle solutions. Through the command center's live feed, the Council watched in amazement as the tiny human fleet split into its combat configuration. Swarms of drones filled the space around Greenhaven, creating a defensive web that the Dominion ships couldn't penetrate. "Their attack pattern makes no sense," one of the Council's military advisors noted, watching the human ship's seemingly chaotic movements. "That's because you're watching it at normal speed," Walker said. He tapped a control, slowing the replay by a factor of 10. Now they could see the incredible precision of each movement, how every position supported 3 others, how each apparent random maneuver was part of a complex, interlocking defense. The Dominion ships, facing an enemy they couldn't predict or outmaneuver, began taking heavy damage. Their inertial nullifiers, so effective in the previous battle, now worked against them as the human AIs learned and adapted to their movement patterns in real time. "Watch this," Walker said with quiet pride as one of the human ships approached a damaged Dominion vessel. Instead of firing weapons, it released a cloud of what looked like metallic dust. "Nanite disassemblers," he explained as the dust cloud enveloped the enemy ship. Within seconds, the Dominion vessel's weapons simply fell apart, reduced to component atoms by microscopic machines. The battle ended in less than 7 minutes. Not a single civilian casualty. Not one building on Greenhaven damaged. The Dominion fleet was either destroyed or had folded in terror. Back in the command center, Admiral Toll turned to Walker. That space-fold technology. The drone swarms. Those nanites. How long has humanity had these capabilities? Long enough to perfect them, Walker replied. We learned early in our development that size doesn't equal superiority. Every system we design focuses on efficiency and adaptability rather than brute force. And you kept all this hidden. Why? Walker smiled slightly. Admiral, humanity has a long history of being underestimated. We've learned it's often an advantage. He looked at the tactical display showing the scattered debris of Dominion ships. Though I suspect that advantage has just ended. A new alert suddenly blared through the command center. Long-range sensors were detecting hundreds of Dominion signatures. No, thousands. It seems, Walker said quietly, they're done testing us. Now they're angry. He straightened his uniform. Time to show them what humanity's tiny fleet can really do when we stop holding back. The council members shared nervous glances. They had mocked these small human ships just days ago. Now they found themselves hoping these same ships could save them all. The council's central military laboratory buzzed with activity. Dozens of alien scientists studied data from the recent battles, trying to understand how ships so small could be so effective. Captain Walker stood beside Admiral Toll, watching as a holographic display showed detailed scans of the Phoenix. Impossible, muttered the head scientist, a tall being with crystalline skin. The power readings make no sense. Your reactor shouldn't fit in a ship that size, let alone function. Walker nodded. That's because it's not a standard reactor. We don't use antimatter or fusion like most galactic ships. He tapped a control, zooming in on the Phoenix's core. This is a quantum vacuum extractor. The scientist stopped working and stared at him. Admiral Toll leaned forward. Explain. Simply put, it pulls energy directly from space itself, Walker said. No fuel needed. The smaller the reactor, the more efficient it becomes. That's why our ships are tiny by your standards. They're actually the optimal size for maximum power generation. One of the scientists dropped a data pad in shock. But the energy equations, the containment requirements, were solved by our AIs decades ago, Walker finished. Humans are good at thinking outside normal limits. Our eyes are even better. The hologram shifted to show the Phoenix's weapon systems. What had appeared to be simple gun ports were actually something far more complex. Quantum-locked plasma channels, Walker explained. The energy flows through subspace, allowing us to hit targets from angles that seemingly defy physics. That's why the Dominion ships couldn't track our firing positions. Admiral Toll frowned. Why share these secrets now? Because the Dominion fleet approaching us is larger than anything humanity has faced alone, Walker replied seriously. We need your ship's raw power combined with our advanced systems. But first, you need to understand how we fight. The hologram changed again, showing the drone swarms that had protected Greenhaven Colony. Each drone was actually a complex quantum computer linked to its parent ship through subspace communications. No delay, no signal lag, just instant coordination across vast distances. Our greatest advantage isn't our technology, Walker continued. It's how we use it. Every human ship is a network of systems working in perfect harmony. No wasted space, no wasted energy, no wasted motion. He brought up battle footage showing how the human ships moved. See these patterns. They look random, but they're actually following quantum probability curves. Our AIs calculate billions of possible enemy actions and position our ships where they're least likely to be hit, while being most likely to make their own shots count. The scientists were frantically taking notes now. Even Admiral Toll looked impressed. Your shields, one scientist asked. How do they work? We've never seen anything like them. Walker smiled. They're not shields in the traditional sense. We use quantum entanglement fields. When something hits us, the energy is instantly transferred to another dimension. No drain on our power systems, no heat buildup, no weakness to specific frequencies. The laboratory fell silent as the implications sank in. Every system on the human ships was generations ahead of current galactic technology, and these were just the capabilities Walker was willing to reveal. An alert flashed across the main screen. The Dominion fleet was getting closer. Early estimates showed over 5,000 ships. "We have 12 hours before they arrive," Walker said grimly. "In that time, we need to upgrade your targeting systems to work with our quantum networks. Your ships have the firepower we need, but they're too slow to target effectively on their own." Admiral Tull straightened. "What do you need from us?" "Access to your main computer cores. Our AIs can optimize your systems. Teach them to think faster. We'll show you how to predict enemy movements using quantum calculations." Walker paused. "And I need your crews to trust us. The coming battle will look like chaos to organic eyes, but there will be a pattern to everything we do." As the scientists and engineers rushed to begin the upgrades, Admiral Tull looked at the human captain with new respect. "When this is over, Captain, the galaxy will need to reevaluate its definition of advanced technology." Walker nodded seriously. "Assuming we survive the next 12 hours, Admiral, humanity will be happy to teach what we know. After all, we're not really that different. We just learned to think smaller to achieve bigger things." Outside the laboratory, the tiny human ships continued their patrol, their powerful reactors humming silently in the void of space, preparing for the battle that would change galactic warfare forever. Space lit up with thousands of energy signatures as the Dominion fleet dropped out of hyperspace. Their massive armada stretched across the stellar horizon, a wall of dark metal and glowing weapons ports. At the front of their formation, 3 enormous dreadnoughts led the charge, each one nearly 10 kilometers long. In the combined command center, Captain Walker and Admiral Tull stood side by side, watching the tactical display. 5,342 enemy ships, reported a council officer. Their dreadnoughts are powering up main weapons. Walker's expression remained calm. "All human ships, initiate Combat Protocol Omega," he commanded through his neural link. "Council vessels, move into supporting positions as practiced." The 27 human ships spread out in what looked like a scattered formation. Behind them, the larger council vessels formed a solid wall of firepower, their newly upgraded targeting systems humming with human AI assistance. "Dominion Fleet is broadcasting," called out a communications officer. "Audio only." "Play it," ordered Admiral Tull. A harsh voice filled the command center. "Surrender now, and some of you may live as slaves. Resist, and we will destroy everything." Walker tapped his console, sending a single response: "No." The battle began immediately. The Dominion dreadnoughts fired their main guns, sending massive energy beams across space. But the human ships were already moving, their quantum probability drives carrying them through gaps in space that shouldn't have existed. "Now," Walker commanded. The human fleet split apart, each ship breaking into its 3-section combat form. Drone swarms filled the space between the two fleets, creating a complex web of quantum-linked sensors and weapons. Behind them, council ships began firing with unprecedented accuracy, their shots guided by human eye calculations. "They're trying to flank us," Tull observed as a group of Dominion ships curved around their formation. "No," Walker corrected. "They're falling into our trap." The flanking ships suddenly found themselves caught in a quantum crossfire. Human vessels seemed to appear from impossible angles, their subspace weapon channels allowing them to hit targets from multiple directions simultaneously. The Council's massive energy weapons, now precisely targeted thanks to human upgrades, provided devastating follow-up shots. In the center of the battle, the 3 Dominion dreadnoughts pressed forward, their heavy armor shrugging off conventional attacks. Walker watched them carefully, then sent a new command to his fleet. "Initiating convergence protocol," he announced. 6 human ships broke from the main battle, forming a hexagonal pattern around the lead dreadnought. Energy began building between them, similar to their space-fold technology, but different somehow. "What are you doing?" Tull asked. "Creating a quantum resonance field," Walker explained. "Every piece of technology has a fundamental frequency. Find it, and—" The energy field pulsed. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the dreadnought's armor simply disappeared, transformed into energy by the quantum field harmonics. The massive ship, suddenly exposed, fell to concentrated fire from the Council fleet. The remaining dreadnoughts tried to retreat, but it was too late. The human ships had their frequency now, and their defenses were useless. Throughout the battlefield, Dominion ships found themselves facing an enemy they couldn't comprehend. Their tactics, perfected over centuries of warfare, meant nothing against an opponent that could predict their moves before they made them. Their advanced shields were bypassed by weapons that ignored normal space. Their crews, trained for traditional space combat, couldn't adapt to the three-dimensional chess game the human eyes were playing. "Enemy fleet is breaking formation," reported a tactical officer. "They're trying to retreat." But the human ships had other plans. Walker sent one final command, and his fleet executed a synchronized space fold. They reappeared in a perfect sphere around the remaining Dominion forces, their quantum weapons ready. "Surrender or be destroyed," Walker transmitted to the enemy fleet. "You have 30 seconds to decide." In the command center, Admiral Tull watched as the mighty Dominion Armada, which had terrorized the galaxy for so long, began powering down their weapons. They had finally learned what the Council had discovered days ago. Sometimes the smallest ships could hide the biggest surprises. The battle was over. The era of big, powerful ships dominating space warfare had ended, and it had taken a tiny human fleet to change everything. 1 month after the Great Battle, the Galactic Council's main chamber looked very different. Where once towering seats had dominated the room, now most representatives sat in smaller pods closer to the ground. The message was clear. Size was no longer seen as a symbol of power. Captain Walker stood at the center of the chamber, presenting to the assembled representatives of 50 species. Above him floated a hologram showing the new designs many council races were already adopting for their ships. "As promised," Walker said, "humanity is sharing our basic ship design principles. Already, 20 council species have begun retrofitting their fleets with quantum technology." Head Councilor Wren, who now preferred a simple hovering chair rather than his former massive throne, nodded approvingly. "The results have been remarkable. Ships 1/10 the original size with twice the combat effectiveness." Admiral Tull stepped forward to join Walker. The once proud admiral had changed too, his formerly ornate uniform replaced by a simpler, more practical design. "Our first joint Human Council patrol fleet launched yesterday," Tull announced. "Small ships, mixed crews, with both organic and AI commanders working together." He paused. "Something we would have considered impossible just months ago." The chamber's main screen activated, showing real-time footage of the new patrol fleet. Sleek vessels, clearly influenced by human designs, but incorporating the best of Council technology, moved in perfect formation through space. Each ship was no larger than the Phoenix, but carried weaponry that would have required kilometer-long vessels in the past. "The Dominion threat has been permanently neutralized," Walker continued. "Their remaining forces have surrendered, and their leadership is beginning to adopt our technological approach." He smiled slightly. "They've learned that bigger isn't always better." A science representative raised a hand. "But surely you haven't shared all of humanity's technology with us. There must be more advanced systems you've kept hidden." Walker's expression turned serious. "You're correct. What we've shared represents about 30% of our current technological capabilities. The rest will come in time, as the galaxy proves ready for each advancement." This caused some murmuring in the chamber, but not the outrage such a statement might have triggered a month ago. The Council had learned humility. "Consider this," Walker explained. "Humanity has had centuries to adjust to each new technology we developed. We learned their proper use, their dangers, their limitations. Dumping all of that knowledge at once would be irresponsible. Head Counselor Wren nodded in agreement. We were arrogant before, believing size and power were all that mattered. Perhaps learning patience will do us good. The screen changed to show education centers that had sprung up across Council space. Human instructors worked alongside Council engineers, teaching new ways of thinking about technology and space travel. The future we see, Walker continued, is one where ships of all sizes work together, where AI and organic crews complement each other, where efficiency and innovation matter more than brute force. Admiral Tull stepped forward again. Captain Walker has been promoted to Fleet Commander. He will oversee the integration of human and Council forces, teaching us how to think differently about space warfare. Walker raised his hand. Not just warfare. Everything we've developed can be used for peaceful purposes too. Our quantum drives can revolutionize exploration. Our AI systems can help solve scientific problems. Our miniaturization technology can make space travel accessible to more species. The chamber filled with approving sounds. The fear and suspicion that had initially greeted humanity's superior technology had been replaced by excitement about the future. One final announcement, Walker said. Earth has approved construction of a new joint training facility. We will teach your best and brightest everything we know about small ship operations, AI integration, and quantum mechanics. He paused, looking around the chamber. Remember how this all started? With laughter at our tiny fleet. Let that be a lesson to us all. The galaxy is full of surprises, and sometimes the smallest things can have the biggest impact. As the chamber erupted in applause, Walker looked out at the changed Council. The massive ships that once filled the space docks were being redesigned. The towering chambers were being rebuilt on a more practical scale. Even the way different species interacted had changed, with less emphasis on physical size and more on ideas and capabilities. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. Never judge a civilization by the size of its ships. Sometimes, the smallest fleet could hide the greatest wonders.